What's up, guys? This is Alex Van Houten in Better Daily. Super excited to hang with you guys and get 1% better every single day, where we focus hardcore on catching the things that are big enough to make a difference, but small enough that we can actually do something about them. And I'm joined by a very distinguished guest, Mr. Dave Danna. It's only funny to say distinguished because he's a very humble guy, which I'm sure you guys will notice as we chat today. But Dave, how are you doing today, brother?
I'm doing well today. It's my pleasure to be here and I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited to connect with you. Now, I connected with you via social media, so we'll
Hmm.
talk about that in a second, but I do want to highlight something crazy. Recently, one of our mutual heroes, Mr. Arnold Schwarzenegger himself, shouted out to you, like not just shouted out, like retweeted, featured you in an email to his people, I think. It gave
Yeah.
you some encouragement on your fitness form. Can you tell me about that? That's mind-blowing and awesome.
Mind blowing and awesome are definitely the correct words. So, I'd been tweeting out my experience starting at the gym, learning what I'm doing there, not knowing what I'm doing there. And I tweeted out a quick video clip of my first lift ever. And I went to work like normal. And a few hours later, I checked in and the tweet had kind of blown up. And I realized that it was because Arnold Schwarzenegger had retweeted it. But you're right, not only did he just retweet it, but he wrote a whole tweet thread about tips about how I was doing. He said he was proud of me, what I could improve upon, what I was doing right. And then he reached out and featured me in his email newsletter, which I must go out to a lot of people because a lot of people I know in the real life saw me in there. And then he followed up again a week or two later and said he wanted updates as I continued to lose weight. And I can tell you it's few things have been more motivating than the Terminator reaching out and telling me he wants my lifting updates and he wants my weight loss updates. That's been quite the motivator over the last month or two, and quite the mind blowing experience to check in on my lunch break and see that that had happened.
That is so cool. Like I got chills a little bit, like I've
Absolutely.
been a trainer for 17 years. Arnold's never congratulated me on my lifts. So like I'm just like so happy for you, man. I think that's amazing. And I also think that that is a direct result of the humility that you've approached this, at least from a social media
Mm,
perspective. As we'll I'm gonna let our listeners know a bit more about your journey in a second, but
absolutely.
that's one of the things that I really appreciate about you. And you and I actually have a kindredness that you don't know about. So I love your profile photo. It's like your bio. I think it says something like, correct me if I'm wrong. It's something like aspiring supermodel.
Yes.
Dave's fat but not for long. Let's do this or something like that.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
That's awesome. That's awesome. But your posts are incredibly motivating because you come off as and I want to know about you as a human, but you come off as the average guy saying, "Look, if I can do this, anybody can do this."
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I'm dead set on doing it, and you can do it too. And I love the way you respond to trolls in the internet space. Hey, blessings on you. I'm gonna
Yes,
keep doing my
exactly.
thing.
Mhm.
Haters are gonna hate.
Absolutely.
um,
Absolutely.
but the kindredness that you and I have is I actually have a genetic condition called
Mm,
Ehlers-Danlos,
mm,
and in my time working as a fitness professional, I personally have never been significantly overweight myself, but I see the struggle with obesity
mm.
as a genetic predisposition to make
Absolutely.
the most out of the body you've been given. And it's not
Very true.
easy. It's hard to
No,
know
it's
how to
not.
feed yourself. It's hard to know how to exercise. It's hard to know how to deal with a hyperactive immune system and all those things. It's hard to do that. But when I work with individuals who have a significant amount of weight to lose, I see myself as a kindred spirit on the journey, because it's like, look, this is the body I've been given, and for me, for my genetic condition, I could be doped up on a couch on painkillers and
Yeah.
letting my kids raise themselves, but I refuse to live like that. And
Hmm.
you say things like obesity is a prison and I'm going to break out, or something like that.
Absolutely.
and
Yes.
and that is like, I that message just needs to go so far and wide. And I want to say thank you that I have you face to face. I want to say thank you for bringing attention and grace and
I appreciate that.
determination and courage to that, because that needs to happen in the lives of people who are struggling and think, there's something wrong with me and I can't make it or whatever. But it's really about taking what you have and making the most of it. So
Absolutely.
I'd love to have your thoughts on
Yeah.
that front before we get into what happened a couple of years ago.
Absolutely. That's a very good point. Part of my journey was that I saw all these opportunities in life that I had, entering my 30s, not just in the physical space, but in the mental space, in the financial space, in the spiritual space. My goal is to one day be, a husband and a father. And, I only have this one body. And at the point in time when I was, above 400 pounds and still gaining while my mental health was spiraling down, I saw those opportunities slipping away. And I had the option for surgery or for drugs or other options, and I thought, I don't know if I don't take this as a mental health journey as well as a physical health journey, I'm not sure it will last for me. So that's part of the reason I dove in
Mm-hmm.
the way I dove in, and that's been, it's also part of the reason I started posting it on social media was, I'm going to do this slow. I'm going to do this steady. I'm not going to do a fad diet. I'm not going to exercise crazy like they do on The Biggest Loser, but I'm going to do some of each, while I work, while I'm in school. And, that slow and steady 2 pounds a week or 3 pounds a week if I can. But even two is, over 100 pounds a year. And that'll do it for me. But that really, that kicked it off was that realization that I only have this one body. I'm 30 years old, and a lot of those
Mm-hmm.
opportunities and goals I have are slipping away. I can see them slipping away.
Man, that's so eye-opening. So what was the straw that broke the
Mm,
camel's back? And let me tell you what I know, and then you fill me in, okay?
of
So
course.
so from what I know on social media from you, a year ago, June, you
Yeah.
were 399.9 pounds, and like you have an awesome picture of your feet on the scale with the number,
Yep.
and as of today or yesterday, I'm not sure which, you're like 92 and a half pounds down
That's
or
right.
something like
Yes.
that. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
92
And
pounds.
and so
Yep.
like so it's a picture, and you have the date, and you have, the picture today or yesterday standing on the scale, right? And you've also posted things like you had, I don't know, $40,000 in debt on your
A lot of
Discover
credit card
card or
debt.
something like. Okay,
Yes.
so like you've posted these things, and you've also said things like you're working on your master's degree, like you have
hmm
a bunch of things, a bunch of irons in the fire,
That's
and
correct. Yes.
and in my experience working with people, something has to happen that says, this is it, this is enough, I have a very intense and wholehearted decision I have to make for the kind of results that you've achieved consistently over a year. For that to be the case, something intense had to happen. I want to hear that story if you don't mind sharing it.
Absolutely, of course. So yeah, last year, in the beginning of June or maybe even late May, I moved into a new house and I flew for the first time since the pandemic. And on that flight, I had to get a seatbelt extender, which was basically the most embarrassing moment of my entire life. And I
Oh
got
man.
back from that trip and I started unpacking this new house. And it has a staircase, which my prior house didn't have. And I realized I was getting out of breath. My back was sweating just going up the single flight of stairs. And then I finally unpacked the scale and I was like, all right, I need to start something. I've been a big guy for a while, but something has crossed a line here. I never needed a seatbelt extender before. Staircases were never a big issue before. And I got on that scale at the beginning of June, one of the first few days of June of last year, and I got an error message. And I assumed this piece of garbage, I need to replace it. I need to get a new one. It got broken in the move, things happen. But then I thought about it a little more that night and I realized I think it only goes up to 400 pounds. And I think the error message is because I'm over that.
Wow.
So I joined a gym the next day. I started looking into different diets. I didn't know what I was doing in the gym. I didn't know what I was doing dieting. I still don't. But after 4 or 5 weeks of dieting and exercise, on June 28th or 29th of last year, I finally got that 399.9. It gave me my first weight, and I consider that my official starting weight just because I didn't know what the real one was. And so you're
That's
right,
amazing.
isn't that what we are 10 months later, give or take, and down 92 pounds. As I like to say, I've got a lot to learn and a long way to go. I'm not even halfway through my goal, my weight loss
Mm.
goal. And you're right, I've been combining it with wrapping up my master's degree. I graduate in 2 weeks, so I have to do my capstone this weekend, and then I'll
Congratulations,
be
keep it
done
up.
with that. Thank you very much. And actually, before this health journey had started in 2019, right before COVID hit, I realized that I had been keeping up with the Joneses, engaging in way too much, consumerism, just buy, and that I had ended up with, $40,000 on my credit card, and it was getting out of hand. And even though I had a decent, income as an accountant. I was nowhere, rich by any means. That's not how accounting works, right? And also, as an accountant, I shouldn't be in this type of financial trouble in my late
Hmm.
20s. And I had been feeling good about myself because I had paid off my student loans, but I had sort of let this balance get completely out of hand. So I took a few years, from 2020 to 2022, and I paid that off completely. And that was another real sort of exercise and discipline and routine. And
Hmm.
then last year, when I started this health and weight loss journey, I wanted to apply some of what I had done successfully there to the physical health, to the mental health. I figured,
Hmm.
I might as well get this all wrapped up and get going on it. But that's the origin story of the weight loss. And I just like to repeat to everyone that I'm not an expert. I don't know what I'm doing. This is what has worked for me over the last 9 and 10 months. And I said I'd put myself out of my comfort zone and do more interviews. But people always ask me for like detailed advice, and I'm happy to share what I'm doing. But I really don't know if it's the correct thing to do. You know what I mean?
Well, it's well said, and you don't have to worry about tramping any toes around here. In our world, what I teach in our podcast and what our community is very familiar from hearing from me is that individuals are bio individuals, and
Mm,
so what works well for me might not work best for you, because even though we share a very large amount of our DNA, there's a small little bit that makes a big difference. Our
hmm.
hair is different, our eyes are different, our metabolism is different, and the way our body handles exercise and rest and stress and all those things is different. And so, whereas I might be a huge proponent of sardine eating, not everybody needs to eat sardines every day, and that's fine. but I'm really
Absolutely.
looking forward to getting into some of the specifics with
Of
you in
course.
a second as to what you've done. But I do want to highlight something that you said there. I thought was really good, and I think is worth saying again for the listeners, and that is Dave has when he looked at his changes he needed to make, and correct me if I'm wrong, brother, but when he looked at the changes he needed to make, he didn't like move away from his life as it is now to go make the changes. He was like, hey, I got all these other plates spinning in the air. So I'm going to make the changes. I'm going to figure out some things I can change, and I'm going to hammer at those and see how that goes. And
Exactly.
then I'm going to build from that perspective. Is that right? Is that kind of the process you went through?
Absolutely. One of the big things was I didn't want to do like a crash diet or a fad diet or, 2 or 3 hours a day of cardio in the gym that wasn't going to be sustainable. I still had to have a corporate life, still have to have a family life, still have to have a social life and academic life,
Yes.
right? So there's going to be birthday parties I have to go to that are probably going to have food I shouldn't, engage
Hmm.
in too much with. And I wanted to be able to build routines and a habit that was sustainable. And I understood that would probably mean the weight loss was slower than I might see on, reality TV, but I wanted it
Yes.
to be sustainable in the long term. And I wanted it to be able to integrate with the fact that I do work full time and I am a student and, I have
Mm.
other things going on. So that's part of the reason I picked the diet I picked. And it's part of the reason I go to the gym so early in the morning was because I wanted to be able to not just do a diet, and not just do weight loss, but build healthy, sustainable, long-term lifestyles. And you're completely right. I didn't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. And part of the issue you run into, I think a lot of people my size or bigger do, is that there's so much information, there's so much entertainment, there's so much infotainment. You can find all these credentialed individuals telling you to do all sorts of different things. And
Right.
I myself find myself getting stuck in analysis paralysis, and then you never start because you should eat meat, you shouldn't eat meat, you should do cardio, you shouldn't do cardio, you should go to the, it's just, every side has an expert. So I thought, you know what? I need to make some radical changes. I need to try something that I haven't done in the past, and I'll do it for 2 or 3 months. I'll tweak it, I'll change it, I'll add something, I'll take away, and we'll see where I am. And 9 or 10 months later, I'm pretty happy with where we are. A long
Yeah,
way to
yeah, you're
go,
doing a
though.
fantastic job. You're doing a fantastic job. Great
Thank
trajectory.
you.
We call that the 1% better journey in our
Absolutely, yeah.
community. So
Hmm.
what we're looking at is, we don't know what we don't know, right? As human beings, we
Absolutely.
just there's a large swath of information in the world that we don't know. There's like I saw a pie chart once. It was like what we know we don't know, and then the rest of the pie chart is like what we don't know we don't know. and
Absolutely, yes.
and life's like that, right? You live every day and you learn something new generally every day, and so
Absolutely.
when you learn something useful, you can go, I think I can use that. I'm going to walk a little further. I'm going to add some intensity. No, 60 minutes times 5 on the treadmill is really hard on my hips, not doing that. Whatever. So the point is, uh we look at the 1% better journey is a really simple thing. It's like, what do I know that I need to start doing, and what do I know that I need to stop doing? And
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's very simple. Like,
Actually, what the
and you can
first thing
try it.
I
Maybe
Absolutely. Yeah. I was going
go
to say,
ahead.
sorry for interrupting. The first thing I did was
No.
stopped doing things and took things away because I didn't know what I should do. But I did know that getting my food handed through my car window and then eating it alone in the parking lot every day in a fast food place, I shouldn't do that. And so a lot of the first things I did was
Mm-hmm.
to cut out fast food, cut out junk food, cut out alcohol, things of that nature. And then I slowly added in some of the more healthy things. And to be honest, I'm still trying to figure those out. But I at that point,
Yeah.
at over 400 pounds, right, with not so great mental health, I had figured out pretty well what wasn't working. So I knew what I need to cut out
Yeah.
at least. And that was the first steps.
And there's a lot of noise in the world about what we should or shouldn't do. That's one of the reasons we don't like meal plans around here, is because it's like, hey, you do
Mm-hmm.
this. It's like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
And until you don't like the food, or until you don't know how to cook it,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, until it's not right for your body. But
Yeah.
but there is that little voice inside that says, this has been a problem for a while. Let's not
Mm-hmm.
do that.
Yeah.
And if you can listen to that little voice and be honest with yourself, then it actually does create some momentum, some change. And it's not big.
Yeah.
It's usually not a big change. It might have big results over time. It's usually not a big change, which kind of
Absolutely.
brings me to this other question. So 92 pounds ish
Yep.
in just under a year. You're gonna break the 100 mark soon, brother. I'm so stoked for you.
That's my goal.
But you've so if you divide out the time, 52 weeks, you're looking at about 2 pounds a week,
Yep.
which, from a day-to-day perspective, that, I mean, long term, that's great. But for somebody who's 399.9 pounds to go, okay, next week 397, next
Yeah.
week 395, I mean, it's encouraging to see progress, but it's also like, it's a big it's a big thing. It can feel really overwhelming. So I'd love to hear from you. One, what has helped you stay consistent in this process? And two, uh, how have you mentally kept yourself from being overwhelmed? And it's okay if you have been overwhelmed, that's fine too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'd love to hear kind of what your process has been. So first, that consistency thing. How have you kept yourself consistent for such a long period of time?
At the beginning, it was very hard. I would say the first month or two was quite difficult because, again, for the first month, I really didn't have a weight. I just knew it was over 400. I was trying to get some sort of number on that scale. That was very difficult. And the second month or so, maybe even longer than that, when it was just sort of like, well, another 1.9 pounds, but I weigh 400. So, right, like there's quite a long way to go. You're right. It was very difficult. And I think what helped me with that was at the same time, I was taking this mental health journey. I was taking a spiritual health journey. And for the first time, I wasn't trying to do it in isolation. I wasn't trying to do it in private. I wasn't lying to myself anymore. So prior times when I tried to lose weight, because of course everyone my size has tried and failed numerous times, I had bottled it all up inside. I had shoved it down. I had done some crash diet with a ton of exercise. And don't get me wrong, they work. I lose some weight, right? But you feel miserable doing it and you fall off the bandwagon and then you gain all the weight back.
And then weight comes
So,
back.
right. So this time I really had to work every day for those first few months on positive affirmations, on reconnecting with my faith, and on reaching out to people in real life for support network and online. Online has been surprisingly supportive given the reputation social media has, and just come to an inner peace, which is part of the things that I do. One of the things I do since I wake up so early is have that time to meditate, have that time to pray, have that time to center myself
Mhm.
and realize that the next week it's 1 pound, it's 2 pounds, it's 3 pounds. That's going to be okay. And one of the reasons I wanted to do it in public, to take pictures and put them on social media, was that in hindsight, I would have accountability, because the first 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, even 40 pounds, I honestly couldn't really tell. And it was pretty demoralizing because it was like, I'm not really there. But now when I look back at 90 pounds, I'm like, oh, like I can tell a difference,
You
right?
can
My
tell,
shirt
yeah.
size is down multiple sizes, my pant size is down multiple sizes. That now the 2 pounds is much easier because I can look back at where I started. But those first few months, they required sort of daily centering, daily grounding myself, reaching out, building an in-person and online support network. And for me also doing a little bit of reconnecting with my faith and just understanding that I had tried the quick method, I had tried the fad diets, I had tried the extreme exercise, and that hadn't worked. So even if this was much slower and it was hard in the first few months, this is what needed to happen. And really, I thought to myself, you have to do this for 6 months, or you have to do this for 9 months, and then we'll look back, even if day to day you don't see the changes. And now, 9 months later, 10 months later, right, my hope is I'll hit 100 pounds down maybe next month, which would be like 11 months. That would be fantastic.
Yes.
And so it's a lot easier now. It's a lot harder in the beginning. And if anyone is starting this journey, I really would say that support network is really key. And understanding that it's completely normal, right, to maybe drop a lot of weight at the beginning and then to plateau or to slow down drastically. But that's normal and that's healthy. And future you will thank you for taking the slow and steady and stable approach rather than trying to lose like, a pound a day or something ridiculous, right?
Yeah, so very well said. Very well said. And when, I've been training for, I think, 15 years when I started the Better Daily community. And one of the things I noticed as a trainer was professional support was helpful, but that many people were lacking from a social support perspective. Even people who are willing to pay $1,000 a month to work with a trainer, their spouse did not want to eat the same dinner they were eating. That was healthy for them, but they're, and so I was like, man, like, there's something to that. It's one thing to have a trainer in your corner who's helping you navigate the difficult waters and find what works well for you and encouraging you and stuff. But if you don't have people in your corner saying, "Hey, keep it up, Dave," like haters gonna hate, "Hey, you're doing a great job," or somebody to report your wins to, or somebody to report your struggles to, that sort of thing, who's not like paid to do it. Right. It's just somebody who cares for your best.
Absolutely.
If you don't have that, then you can make progress, but it won't last forever. Because there's a time when our motivation and our personal inspiration start to fail, and we're social creatures. We draw from the people around us, especially the people who care about us. And so we started the Better Daily community with the purpose of having a group that is aiming up. And and even if some goofball's doing curls on the squat rack, I don't know if you know about that or not yet, but that's a fun meme.
Yes.
At least he's in the gym, man.
Yep.
Like,
exactly.
Because in my world, he's still trying to get better, and that's good. And that's what we want is encouragement on that front. I got to ask you about this spiritual journey. So in Better Daily, we talk about better in body, mind, and spirit. And it's my faith tradition is Christian. So it's my belief, and I guess you could call this a faith thing too, but it's my belief that the body follows the mind and the mind follows the spirit. And in the Christian tradition, we have a story about Moses coming along the burning bush. I don't know if you've heard of Exodus 3 or not, but so Moses comes along the burning bush, and the bush is on fire, but it's not being consumed, and that's where God speaks to him to tell Pharaoh to let his people go. And that's a powerful story, and it's a deep piece of the Jewish and Christian tradition. But there's actually a nice metaphor there, and the metaphor is the body. The body builds itself anew every day, and over a year, the molecules that make you up, Dave, they're not going to be the same molecules. Like next year, you're going to have brand new molecules. Whatever you ate, your body's going to take it and build itself out of that, right? The body changes very slowly. It takes time for the body to reflect what's happening in the mind. The mind is fickle. Like, man, like you can mindset all day, but sometimes things are going to happen, and you got you have the cloud over your head or whatever. But this spirit thing's enduring, or it's been my experience that the spirit can switch, and something can change in you that drives the mind to get on board. And over time, your mind can rewire itself and be less negative and be more positive and be less anxious and be less depressed and all those things. And then the body follows suit. So it's something my listeners are privy to, but it's really important to me when I work with people that we do not isolate the body from the mind and the spirit.
Absolutely.
It's not like you're depressed and anxious. That sucks. Let's run harder. Like
exactly.
that doesn't work.
Yes,
doesn't work for long, So I want to know about this journey
Sure,
you've been on,
absolutely.
and I know that's more personal and stuff. So you share what you're
No
comfortable
worries.
sharing, but what happened, and what has that journey looked like that resulted in so much happening in the body?
Absolutely. So I was raised Jewish, so the Passover story is one that I'm familiar with.
Awesome.
But I had moved away from my faith, not any rebellion or anything, just as I went off to college, got busy, and then moved to the deep south where I live right now. Not a whole lot of Jews around here, so I hadn't been involved with my faith as much as an adult as I was as a child.
Mm,
But when I started this journey last year, one of the things that I thought to myself, or one of the goals that I thought about, was that God probably didn't put me on earth to be over 400 pounds and spiraling down and putting all these opportunities in front of me, but then I can't take advantage of them, because of my own struggles. And
hmm
so I wanted to make sure that when I went on this mental health journey, when I went on this physical journey, that I was incorporating my relationship with God and my own personal faith and building that back up, as I had been as a child, but even more than it had been as a child. And it's something that I struggle to speak with. I speak more about my mental health and my physical health,
hmm
on social media, but it is a really big component
Yeah.
that I am still working on. I do feel like I don't think I could have done it as well, and I don't think it would be as sustainable if my sort of daily meditation, my daily prayer, and my rebuilding of my faith slowly wasn't a critical part of it. You asked earlier about how do you stay motivated when it's another 2 pounds when you're at 400 and something, you're not sure, right? Because the error message on the scale, a lot of it was leaning on God, a lot of it was relying on God, a lot of it was thinking about my past, a lot of it was thinking about the opportunities in front of me that God was putting in front of me,
hmm
my desire to be a husband, a father one day, to be a healthy role model for them,
hmm
and to live, as God wanted, as laid out, in that Old Testament, specifically in my case, right? And just feeling like I was 30 years old and I wasn't doing that at the moment, but I could build towards that with God's support and
hmm
in the way laid out by my faith that I had somewhat walked away from. And
hmm
thinking that a lot of these things that are so confusing in the modern world and so overwhelming and so overloading, solutions for them, at least one way of living, can be found in these ancient texts, in this ancient
100%.
way of living, where it lays out these sort of simple tenets for living that cross most faiths and are fairly basic. But
hmm
I thought maybe this is a solution that's a lot simpler and uh, cuts through a lot of the signal to noise ratio that's so out of whack, in 21st
Yeah.
century Twitter life. And
Very well
so
said.
it's not anything particularly formal at this point in time. And again, it's something I'm just starting to get into, but I do feel like the spiritual aspect combined with the mental health has been even more important, or the main driver of the physical results. It's just
hmm
it's harder to demonstrate that in a tweet than it is with a gym selfie.
it is almost impossible, and
Yeah,
in our world today it can be a little off-putting from a
yeah, of
social media
course,
perspective.
definitely
And
is.
one of the things that I believe is it's very important to me that through a health and fitness journey, people are ready to look for health and fitness help. Like
Yes.
many people are, and there's a lot of voices in the world. I'm trying not to be part of the cacophony, that's for sure.
Hmm.
But that it might start that way, but it won't end that way.
Agreed.
And so when I work with people, it's important to me. I'll put things about my faith relatively frequently on social media. I can be a
Hmm.
little feisty, but I try not to be too militant. Um, but it has been a part of my story in
Hmm.
working through childhood trauma. It has been a part of my story in dealing with anxiety and depression. That my relationship with God was particularly healing for me. It took
Hmm.
time and energy to establish that and grow that, but no amount of like weight training and running and all that stuff that was good for me. But
Right.
that when they were anchored in a spiritual practice for myself, that's when I saw, for as far as Ehlers-Danlos was concerned, a significant reduction in my mental health issues, a
Hmm.
significant reduction in my own injury cycle, significant reduction in some of the less wonderful versions of my illness, like digestive discomfort and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And when I work with people who have that, there's a distinctive difference between how they how resilient they are to the vicissitudes of life, so to speak, on
Hmm.
their journey. And if you're not a believer, that's fine. Like, fine, have at it. Like, run, and you don't need to pray, whatever.
Absolutely.
But
Yes.
what I really like to drill home, though, is there's a deep part of us that seems to be calling to the best in us,
Hmm.
and wants to transcend even our current mortal disposition and all of our faults, right?
Absolutely.
And that part of us, if we don't involve that part of us in the process of better, we don't involve that part of ourselves, then at the very least we're going to get less great results. That's at the very least. But at
Yes.
most, I have experience where people will have um, it'll feel separate, and so then it
Hmm.
snaps back together. The spirit hasn't changed, so you can beat the body up, but eventually it's going to flip back. It's
Agreed.
going to pendulum
Agreed.
swing in the other direction. So thank you so much for sharing that with everybody. I
Of
know it's
course.
faith is a hard thing to articulate well, but I'm you've mentioned it a couple times, and I'm just
Yeah.
stoked about it. Can you tell us a bit about how your mental health has gotten better through this process as well?
Absolutely. So one of the things I get asked a lot about, or people ask me, is like, what's your workout routine? Like, have you found an exercise strategy that's caused you to lose this weight? And what I say is, it's really the exercise isn't what's driving the weight loss. The exercise, it's what's driving the mental health improvements, the
Mm,
positivity, the optimism, the increase in my confidence. The diet and lifestyle changes, the mental health and mindset changes, the spiritual journey, that's what's driving the weight loss. The
mhm,
exercise is, for me, the biggest thing that's improved my mental health over the last 9 or 10 months. Getting up
mm,
early in the morning, I get up, 4:15 in the morning so I can be in the gym really early. Getting that done before the sun rises makes me feel productive, makes me feel
mhm,
positive, makes me feel optimistic. I don't work out particularly hard. I'm still over 300 pounds. I'm not sure how to do anything. There's not really staff at the gym at 4:30 in the morning, right? So I take it easy. I take it slow. And at this weight, right, pretty much anything burns me calories, gets my heart rate up, gets my blood pumping, gets me sweating. And then when I walk out of that gym, every 5 days a week for me, that puts me in a really positive, optimistic mindset that I can
mhm,
tackle whatever else the day throws at me, work and then school into the evening, everything else that I'm trying to balance, everything else that everyone's trying to balance. And that compounded daily, just a little bit every day, has done a huge for my confidence and for my mental health over the
mm,
last 9 or 10 months. I'm much more optimistic about the future. I'm much more confident in myself. Posting pictures is something I definitely didn't do. I'm not really a social media guy. People ask me that, but like before this, I didn't have a personal Instagram. I never posted on my personal Facebook, didn't have a personal Twitter. And
mm,
so, because I didn't really like social media, and also I was over 400 pounds, right? I really didn't want to post, and
mhm,
I wasn't in a good headspace. My mental health wasn't particularly good. In fact, it was declining. And so I do think combining a cleaner, healthier diet with the confidence and the optimism that I feel after working out, that has
mhm,
been one of the most important, yet sort of understated benefits of the last 10 months, again because it's difficult to show in a post on social media. But the mental health journey has been just as important, if not more so, than the physical journey and the spiritual journey. And it had a lot of it has been driven from working out, even though I don't think the weight loss has been driven directly from that. But it's
mhm,
been it's been a crazy 10 months just in terms of my mindset shifting and my mental health improving drastically.
mm. Thanks for sharing that, brother. Yeah,
Of
and
course.
the uh, when as you were talking there, I was thinking about how many people I've worked with in the past would say something like, "What's the best exercise? Like, how many calories? What burns the best calories?
Right.
And
Yeah.
what should I be doing?" And um, if you can make yourself do something active for 30 minutes, I don't even care what it is, like going for a walk, walking on
Hmm.
a stairmaster, picking up weights and not knowing what to do with them is fine. If
Exactly.
you can do that one of the things that happens when you do that consistently is you start to see yourself differently.
Mm,
Like, that guy got up, that guy got to the gym, that guy did something, that guy sweated this morning, right?
right.
And I don't care if it was 200 calories, I don't care if it was 400 calories, I don't care. Like from a training perspective, the magic of exercise is not the calories burned. The magic of exercise are twofold. One, those mental health processes you were just talking about, like, you start to solidify a different vision of yourself over time.
Hmm.
There's a lot of changes that actually happen in the brain. Dr. John Rady wrote an awesome book called Spark, the
Mm,
revolutionary new science of exercise in the brain, where he kind of digs into what happens at a neurological level. But second
interesting.
is this, you can make changes to your body via exercise by applying exercise like a stressor. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, for many people, when they think of exercise, it's like they're beating themselves up, like a sledgehammer. They think of
Yeah.
exercise
Hmm.
as a
Yep.
sledgehammer, and exercise should really be more of a scalpel. It should be like,
Mm,
here's the thing that's going to make the most difference. You don't have to beat yourself up. Here's the thing that makes the most difference, because if you beat yourself up over time, you're gonna wear your joints down. I'm so glad you've done things the way you've done things, because if you're 400 pounds and you try to start running and
yeah.
throwing heavy weights over your
Hmm.
head, your
Yeah.
joints are going to revolt.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
there's only so long you can do that, and then you'll say, oh, this exercise thing's not for me. And
Hmm.
I'm sure you had a few days that were like that in the very beginning,
Absolutely.
right? You're
Of course. Yes,
like, I don't
definitely.
know, I guess I'll go, don't know what I'm gonna do, everything
Yeah.
hurts.
That's very true. Yes.
but the I, I hope, to the listener, I hope you hear what Dave's saying here, is that the consistency of showing up for himself to do something difficult, maybe didn't always want to do it, but he did it, that set him up well and help to drive the mindset changes necessary to continue on this journey every day.
Absolutely.
Do you have anything else
Absolutely.
to add to that? I know I spoke quite a bit
No
about that
worries.
subject.
If I could, just if we're speaking to
Yeah.
someone who might be in my situation or
Yeah.
even bigger, one thing I would say that I wish I realized earlier on, and this applies to a number of different settings, is that you belong in those places that make you uncomfortable, and that we all want you to be there, and that it's okay to walk into those places and feel uncomfortable and not know what you're doing, whether that's the gym, whether that's a health food store, whether that's going to the doctor. I hadn't visited my doctor in years because I knew he was going to tell me I was super fat, right? I didn't need that in my life, right? I had health insurance, right? I was an accountant, I just avoided it.
Mhm.
Whether that's going back to your church, whether that's going into therapy, the gym is one of the most intimidating places, probably the most intimidating place that I've ever walked into alone at over 400 pounds, not knowing how to do anything. But I just walked on the treadmill for like maybe 10 minutes that first day, and I was out of breath and I was sweaty and everything was terrible. And I showed up the next day, and then I showed up the next day. And
Mhm.
it turned out to be one of the most inclusive, one of the most supportive places I've ever been, both the online fitness community and the in person fitness community.
Mhm.
And I just think that if you are thinking about starting this journey and you have that, what they call like gym intimidation or whatever it is, or you're avoiding the doctor or something like that, one thing that I wish I had learned earlier was how supportive everyone in sort of the health and fitness and nutrition space is. Even if you're doing a little bit of a different diet, even if you don't know what you're doing in terms of exercise, even if you're not sure where you are mentally, or you're struggling mentally like I was when I started this, it has been substantially more positive and substantially more supportive in those uncomfortable places.
Mhm.
And it's been quite mind-blowing to me. That's why I try to mention it, just how much they made me feel like I belong. They wanted me
Mhm.
to succeed. They wanted me to be there. They wanted me to show back up tomorrow. We'll try a different machine. We'll do an extra rep, or maybe we won't, right? We'll take it easier the next day. But they wanted me to come back and they wanted me to get to my goals. And there wasn't any issue that I was starting at over 400 pounds and, was anxious and depressed and had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think a lot of people like me, why I think this is because I did it, don't get started earlier, because they're lying to themselves, they're lying to everyone, they're bottling everything up, they're pushing it down, and they're intimidated to set foot in some of those places: the gym, the therapist's office, church, the doctor's office, the health food store, right? But all of those
Mhm.
places have been an incredible blessing to me in terms of everyone just being nice and
Mhm.
positive and supportive. And so, just something I like to throw out there because I wish I had realized it, 2, 3, 4, 5 years earlier.
Yeah, very, very well said, and thank you for that because you walk into a place like that and there's mirrors everywhere, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that really shoots people in the foot if they have a big weight loss journey to go on, they don't realize how big they are until they see a picture of themselves or something, or
Yes.
they see themselves sideways in a mirror, which you can generally avoid until you walk into a gym
That's
because
right. Not
there's mirrors
there.
everywhere.
Hmm.
Like
Yes.
everywhere
Yep.
you're like, ah, dang it, who's that guy? Oh, that's me.
Hmm. Yep.
um,
Exactly.
and I love your spirit that at least you share with social media, which is like there's something to be said about, especially about being a man. And I don't know how to say this to the ladies, so I'm sorry, but there's something to be said about how manly it is to look yourself in the face and to not only accept yourself lovingly for who you are, but also to tell that guy you can be better and we're gonna get there.
Yeah.
Like and to do that with courage,
Yeah.
because uh, you could avoid that because you
Easily.
said
I
just a
did.
second ago it really resonated with me. You were like, you have to be honest with yourself. You said that, and that's exactly right. When you look in the mirror, you have to be honest with yourself, and you say, yeah, I just love it so much. Dave is fat, but not for long. But
Yep.
like
Exactly.
he just
Yes.
he just came right out and said it. I'm fat, but I'm not gonna be forever. Let's do this thing. And dude, that is just. I hope it's so personally freeing to you. But I also think that that's why you have found these places to be such a blessing to you because at least in the Christian tradition, Christ said that if any man wishes to be my disciple, he will deny himself, pick up his cross, and follow me. Now that could mean a number of
Mm.
things, but one of the things I think it means is there's this thing in life, this burden, this thing that's yours to carry, whatever it is, and when somebody picks up their cross and bears it forthrightly, like somebody over 400 pounds gets on the treadmill and hits the go button, it's inspiring to every single person who also has a burden to bear. It might not be 400 pounds, but they
Hmm.
like you have I mean, it's a unique burden, but it's a very visual and powerful thing to say, I'm 400 pounds, whatever, start.
Yeah.
and here I go. And every single person who's around that elevates and lifts everybody up because it says,
Absolutely.
hey, Dave is bearing his burden today. I'm going to bear mine well too. And that image in my mind, it is in my mind is the best of what the fitness community can be, is a tribe of people who bear their burdens well. So I'm,
Absolutely.
I'm so glad that you found it to be such a welcoming place.
Yeah, yeah, it was a real blessing, and that's part of the reason I started posting on social media. I really wasn't a social media person. I didn't expect anyone to follow, but one of the changes I wanted to make compared to this time and all the other times I tried and failed to lose weight and get healthy was I'm going to do it in public. I'm going to do it under my own name so that I have to hold myself accountable. I have to hold
Mm,
myself honest because I have a gym selfie from 3 months ago, from 6 months ago, from 9 months ago, and
mm-hmm.
I've had blood work done a few times. So I put the results online. Like, here's the blood pressure, here's the A1C, here's the glucose,
That's
right?
so
Like,
good.
we got to be working on that at the same time, right? I try to
Mm-hmm.
post, one of the other things that has been important but doesn't get talked about is, I'm trying to learn to cook a few things for the first time in my life. So I put that online, and I don't know how to cook or how to take pictures of food,
Mm.
right? But I'm going to do it. I'm going to put it out there so that future Dave can look back and see the progress I've made when I'm having those bad mental health days, right? When I don't feel like, God wants me to
Mm.
succeed, right? I can look back and say, actually, I've made a ton of progress. It's just, it doesn't look that way from yesterday to today.
That's awesome. I love that you authentically bring that hero's journey to the table. It's like, I don't know how to cook, but here's what I've cooked.
Yeah,
Moving on.
exactly.
I
Yeah,
think you had like salmon and broccoli yesterday. Rate
that's
my
right.
plate, you
Yes,
said.
that's
That was
right.
great.
Yes, exactly.
That's great.
Yes.
And that salmon looked good, by the way. Whatever you did to it looked great.
That was the
So
best one so far, I think.
nicely done. Nicely done.
Thank you.
So there's two things I want to make sure we got to talk about
Mhm.
before if believe it or not, we've been at this for 46 minutes, and you're the kind of guy I
Wow.
could talk to all day. So I want to respect your time, but the uh, I'm sure anybody listening to us wants to know thus far because they've heard exercise regularly for mental health, very, very important. There's a spiritual change that needs to happen on the inside if you're so inclined to get everything moving in the same direction. Social media can be a powerful and positive force in your life, and there's plenty to say about how to use it and how not to.
Yeah,
But I really want the listeners to hear how your relationship with food has changed in the last year. If you don't mind sharing with
absolutely.
us, how'd you start, what worked for you, what didn't, and then where are you now that is continuing to see progress? And obviously, disclaimer, as Dave said earlier, he's not an expert, but this is what seems to be working well for him, and so he's going to continue doing that and growing from there, I'm sure. So if you wouldn't mind sharing that with us,
Of
that'd be
course.
great.
Of course. So in the past, I had largely tried like log every single calorie every day, eat like a ton of salads or related stuff. You'll keep yourself in like a huge caloric deficit and you'll lose weight. And you will lose weight. I'm not saying that won't work, but I would always fall off the bandwagon and I would always be pretty unhappy trying to log everything. And I wasn't a huge fan of that type of food. So this time when I
Mm-hmm.
started, I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do, right? Because I knew it wasn't working, but I didn't know what was going to work. So the first
Mm-hmm.
things I did was I cut out fast food, I cut out junk food, I cut out as much highly processed and packaged food as I could. I stopped eating anything that got handed to me through my car's window. I cut back on my alcohol consumption and I stopped drinking any of my calories. And in effect, what that did is it really lowered my sugar intake, it lowered my carbs, and it lowered my calories overall as well. And it cut out certain things completely, like candy and stuff that I had been doing. And I had to again be brutally honest with myself in the beginning that like you eat as a reward, but you also eat when you're stressed and you also binge eat. Like not that I've been diagnosed with anything formal, I don't want to indicate that, but there was definitely a lot of like massive consumption of food, both either as a reward or as a negative. So it was like both,
Mm-hmm.
I was getting it from both
Mm-hmm.
sides. And so it truly is a relationship with food that had to change, not just the diet. So the first thing was trying to work on that late night snacking, which was more like binge eating. And a lot of that has been stopped because I try to go to bed much earlier because I have to wake
Mm-hmm.
up earlier to get
You
to the
got to get up at
gym.
4. You
That's
got to get
exactly
the
right.
Plet, man.
That's exactly right. And even just recognizing it and being honest with myself and now with others too, has been part of the way. Again, if you're lying to yourself, then you can just lie and tell yourself it's not happening. But now that I've been honest with myself, I recognize it more and I'm able to stop it more. And then as I went on, and I had cut those things out, those were great. I lost some weight, definitely did. But I went to the doctor for the first time in, I don't know, maybe 10 years in September of last year. So that was a couple months after I'd started this. And my blood pressure was borderline high, and my blood sugar was in the pre-diabetic range, and I had a resting heart rate that was over 100, which the doctor was very concerned about. And I had already dropped 30 35 pounds, so I thought I was
Mm.
doing good.
This is
And
like healthier you.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is not as bad as it was that you should have seen me 4 months ago, right? And so after that, I said, okay, I've cut out a lot of like the worst parts of sort of like the standard American diet, but these blood results are concerning on basically every front, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I, even my triglycerides and LDL, those would be nice to come down. I mean, basically every one of like the big metrics they'll talk about, I was like
Mm-hmm.
borderline problematic, if not already. So I
Mm-hmm.
started to do more of a low carb diet. I cut out more of the breads. I cut out more of the pasta, which is hard for me because I'm Italian. But
Mm.
and I focused on eating a lot of meats, a lot of vegetables, and some fruit. And that was like sort of the next 3 months. And that worked very well for me because I felt like I couldn't cut down too far or it would become too strict and I would fall off the wagon again, or it would be difficult to go through like a normal life if I couldn't eat some normal foods, right? And
Sure.
again, my goal with this was to be sustainable, was to be slow so that it would last over time and be a lifestyle change, right? So there are people out there who are only eating meat, there are people out there who are never eating meat. I was like, I'm not sure I really can do either of those, right? But I'm going to focus on meats, vegetables, and some fruit when I have a craving, and mostly just
Mm-hmm.
drinking water. And that I did that pretty much through like January of this year, February maybe, and I went back and got follow-up blood work, and everything had come down into the normal range. which was my doctor was very surprised that it happened so soon. And I had lost another, 30, 35 pounds back at that point in time. So that was very encouraging for me, and for my doctor. One of those sort of non-scale, but still very important health victories, right? But
Yes.
I wasn't sure how much more I could cut back on like the various food groups I was eating. And I wanted to make sure, because my weight loss was slowing at that point a little bit, even though I was still big, just because, that initial, 50, 60, even 70 pounds came off easier because I started so big, and not that it was easy, that making those little changes like getting to the gym and cutting out fast food really made drastic differences for me. So what I've done more recently is I've started to dabble a little bit in intermittent fasting, and I'm not sure again that I'm going to stick with it. But what I do like about it is it has further reduced my nighttime snacking, because I have this hard eating window where it's like I'm not going to eat after 7 or 8 p.m. So if I get a craving at 9 or 10, well, it's after my eating window, right? I'm just not going to do it. And additionally, so I eat basically lunch and dinner, and then sometimes I'll have a snack or two in between, but I'm not eating breakfast and I'm not snacking at night. And that breakfast for me, I know everyone says it's the most important meal, but for me, it was the most annoying meal, because I was trying to get my day started at that point in time. And I didn't want to have to cook a meal and then clean it. And I was still very early. People weren't awake. So I thought, when I first started intermittent fasting, I'm not going to be able to do this. I can't go without breakfast. I'm going to immediately fall off this wagon. I mean, it has worked out better than I expected. So the current thing that I'm doing is building on everything I have, cutting out all the junk initially, then going largely low carb. And then the latest one is this intermittent fasting, which for me mostly means not eating breakfast and not snacking late at night. But one thing I do mention is that's maybe like 70 to 80% of the meals I eat. And then the other 20, 25, 30%, something like that, are in a family setting or a friend setting or a religious setting, a school setting, a corporate setting. And that I'm far more relaxed on. I keep it as clean as I can, as low carb as I can, as on diet as I can, 70, 80% of the time. And then the other 20 to 30% time, I have to be a functioning normal adult, right? So that's eating meals that I don't know exactly what the ingredients are. Maybe there's some carbs in it, right? If I'm at a birthday party, maybe I'm having a slice of cake. I wanted to build a lifestyle for me that wouldn't preclude me or exclude me from doing all of these normal people things. So that's why I don't really say I'm doing keto or anything exactly like that, because I don't track anything, and I'm probably having more carbs than they would like, just because I'm still a functional adult in a normal world, and I do have some normal meals. But I'll wrap up just by reiterating what you said, that I'm not an expert in any way. I'm an accountant, right? I have no expertise in this, and I am, as you can tell, tweaking as I'm going. And this last thing, intermittent fasting, is a relatively late addition, so I'm not by any means a diet zealot that this is the only way and this is what works. But it was one of the things that I wanted to do when I started this journey. Was I'll try some stuff, I'll give it a few months, I'll tweak it as I go. And so far this has been the most successful long-term weight loss diet I have found, that's also not making me miserable.
That's awesome. Well, and I'm so glad you said that. There's two things I really want to hone in on. One, you took us through the process of what we call creating a default diet for yourself. And the reason I call it a default diet is it's like nothing else is happening outside of just the normal day to day. So this is what I default to, right?
Yeah.
And if we can get that right, because it might be 70%, might be 80%. Some of us might not have a lot of friends, so it's 90%. I'm just kidding. But a default diet is extremely important, because it's, how do I feed myself well? How do I make the most out of what I've been given? How do I give myself the nutrition that I need, and keep nutrition high and calorie density relatively low unless I need it, and like, how do I do that in a way that doesn't make me miserable? Like, that's kind of what you described. And then there's the other, like, again, 30%, 20%, 10% of the diet or whatever. And this is the part of our diet where generally our default is we eat for health, we eat for sustenance, we eat to grow ourselves well, we eat to maintain a healthy immune system and great at metabolism, right? But then sometimes we eat because it's good, and because it's pleasurable, and because it's social, and because we're celebrating, right? So for instance, birthday cake is a great example. Super high sugar, super high fat, very
processed.
palatable,
Yeah.
right? Makes me kind of hungry talking about it,
Yeah.
right? When we eat birthday cake, we get a huge shot of
Mhm.
serotonin. Like it actually releases serotonin in the brain, and that's part of the birthday celebration because serotonin is this hormone that elevates social status, right? So the birthday boy or birthday girl gets their cake, and everybody shares in this, and everybody's got nice high serotonin, and everybody's like, "Yay, honoring you on your birthday!" You know, we don't eat chicken breast and spinach because they don't boost serotonin like that. You know,
Exactly.
like it's not like, "Hey, we're gonna put candles in the chicken breast." You know, so so it's so important to me that people hear, like, when it comes to being healthy and doing good things for yourself and moving in the direction that, as far as Dave and I are concerned, God created you to be, which, you know, maybe you don't
Hmm.
believe that, but fine. But if you're eating like that, it shouldn't be like, where people get into trouble is where their default diet's garbage, and then they're like, oh, I just can't have this birthday cake at this party. I'm like, why not? It's one
Yeah.
piece of cake, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
And so in the Better Daily community, I often say carrot cake is awesome, especially on leg day, because we're going to make great use of those carbohydrates, right? And it's going to help us
Exactly.
recover and whatnot. But I'm so glad that you kind of walked us through that default diet process and also made sure to articulate, because this is so huge. This is not like I have removed myself from normal life and family and friends and lunch dates and stuff, uh, so that I can lose weight. It's I have integrated the way that I eat on a regular basis
Hmm.
into a healthy lifestyle for myself, and I'm not terribly stringent with myself about how I approach family, friends, and communal gatherings.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure within reason, and
Yeah, of
that's a very
course. Of
healthy
course.
approach,
Yeah.
because when people get really restrictive and the birthday cake comes out, then it's like, I'm going to eat the whole cake.
Yes.
I'm not
Yes.
just going to have a piece and be happy with the serotonin boost and honoring birthday boy and girl, but I'm going to eat the whole cake because I deserve this for working so hard. And that's a rough psychological place to be. Sounds like
Absolutely. Yes.
you probably have experienced both. And so I'm so glad
Yes.
you're sharing that with us. Now I can't let you go without asking about the Plet. So as
Yes.
I understand it, well, I'm not going to. Please tell us, what is Plet, and I'm going to share a link because I think you have an Etsy link for this.
Yes, I do.
But
Yes.
what is Plet?
So, luckily for me, a Planet Fitness opened in September of last year, right around when I was tightening up a lot of stuff because I'd gotten that blood work that was a little bit concerning. And
Mm,
maybe a week or two after, like a brand new Planet Fitness, and a week or two after, two of the big light bulbs in the front went out. So instead of saying Planet, it said PL, and then there were two lights that were out, and then it said ET. So the A and the N were out, and I was going at 4:30 in the morning. So I would see this every day, and I started posting about it, and people started calling it the Plet, and then I started calling it the Plet because it really wasn't a Planet Fitness; it was PLET. And then my girlfriend, as kind of a joke, made me a Plet shirt, so wear in the Plet in the Planet Fitness. And at first I thought like this is not going to last more like a day or two because obviously you're going to fix the lights. But it took them like 3 or 4, maybe even 4.5 months. It just got fixed last month to fix these two light bulbs. So I started wearing the shirt more, and then people asked if they could get them. So I started selling the shirt, and my girlfriend hand makes them all on Etsy. So it became sort of almost like a brand, and they did fix it, which I appreciate. And people can see I post a picture of it still every day or every weekday, and it now says Planet, but the Plet has become more of a statement or a brand about what I am doing and what my goals are and where I am going. And people keep using it. So I keep using it. But originally, it was just a little bit of a motivator. It was kind of humorous to me, especially
sure.
after it had been a month, after it had been 2 months, after it had been 3 months. And now it's more like a statement that I find myself repeating, like when I'm trying to get out of bed in the morning, when I'm trying to get motivated, that I've got
Got
to
to
go
get
to
to
the
the
Plet.
Plet.
And yeah, and I'm just going to keep calling it that. And, it's just one of those unexpected quirks that took off, just like social media in general, to be honest.
Sure.
But that is the story behind the Plet.
I love it. Well, I find it kind of an archetypal thing, and maybe I just think too much about
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But I look at that, and it's, from your perspective, this is the place where pretty people go to get prettier or whatever.
Hmm.
And that was old Dave's perspective. Obviously, new
Hmm.
Dave, not so much. But the Plet's not perfect.
Yeah.
Like there's two, it's missing two letters. We're missing some stuff too, probably.
Very true.
And
Very
and
true.
so we can go and we're not intimidated, and we're gonna go to the Plet, and what's funny is we're gonna celebrate what's not right. Like we
Absolutely.
could be like, oh, this stupid gym, like they can't even figure out the lights, blah, blah. Like, and in the same way, we could look in the mirror and we can be like, you stupid man, like with your fatty arms and blah, blah, blah. But instead, we're gonna be like, no, I'm gonna go to the Plet. I'm gonna be grateful that I'm there,
Absolutely.
and make a fun joke out of missing two letters. I'm gonna have a shirt. I like your girlfriend's way of thinking. I love it. Here's a shirt, dude.
Yeah.
Like she's a good
Yeah.
gift.
Yep.
She's a good gift giver. That's a
Definitely is.
good
That's for
love
sure.
language to have. Um,
Yes.
and so then other people are like, oh, you're going to the Planet because now it's not just Planet Fitness. It's the place Dave goes at 4 in the morning to
Yes.
pursue the best version of Dave and to encourage, the what 50,000 followers now, something like
Yeah, it's
that, that are
crazy. Yeah,
that
it's
are
crazy.
are are watching what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah,
That's awesome.
definitely. And to be honest, I can't quite articulate why, but it was a lot easier to walk into it when it was the Plet early on, right? When I was still 370, even 360, 350 pounds, when it was like, well, got to go see the broken sign again. Like that's a little bit funny. Like, I'm gonna post about it. We'll all have a good laugh, and I'll feel less intimidated being here at 4:30 in the morning.
There really is something to that. There really is something to that. I worked for a very, very large company. I won't name them here, but very large luxury gym chain, and everything was perfect all the time. Like
Hmm.
the sign was perfect, and the place was perfect. They only hired like the prettiest people to work the front
Hmm.
desk and stuff. And like I was a trainer there, I'd work with whoever, it didn't matter. But at the same time, I would speak to people who would describe how intimidating this place was. And
Hmm.
I'm a fit person. I'm a personal trainer. And I walked into this place intimidated. Like, geez, like, was it a Globo gym in the was it
Yes.
dodgeball? You know what I'm
Hmm.
talking
Yeah,
about?
I
Yeah.
do. Yes,
Kind of
yes.
like that, like,
Yeah, yep, yep.
so I love that. I love that you made it a thing. I love that you have those shirts. I'm going to put a link for anybody listening
I
below who,
appreciate that. Yes.
so that they can give your girlfriend some more work to do on her Etsy.
Yes.
um, but but before letting you go here, I do want to ask that you help us to know how best to follow what you're doing. Because right now, you said I'm not a social media guy, but you got Facebook and you've got Twitter and you've got Instagram, and you got YouTube.
Yes.
Can you describe to us how to connect with you? And I also understand that you have a subscription based thing that you just started as well, and I'd love for you to share that with us if you don't mind.
Sure. I'm Dave E Danna on Twitter. One of the things that was important to me early on was to do it under my own name. And yes, Elon has granted me randomly with a subscription ability last week, so I'm turning it on and tweaking how I can have a little bit more of an intimate accountability group with there on the subscription. So that is available on Twitter if you are so inclined. But of course, the normal Twitter is as well. And yeah, somehow in some crazy world, I passed 50,000 followers not long ago, which is absolutely mind blowing. Yeah, and I'm Dave E Danna on Facebook as well, and I think I'm David E Danna on Instagram. But I'm the authentic, I'm the verified one who looks like me. The fat guy posting pictures at Planet Fitness, that's me on
The
Instagram as
fat guy
well.
posting pictures at Planet Fitness.
That's me. And I do have a small YouTube channel, Dave E Danna, as well. There, basically, I'm under my own name on all of the platforms. And again, I really don't know what I'm doing. There's no strategy behind it, and it's just me. But I'm posting my journey, not just physical, but mental, spiritual, and financial as well as I go, slow and steady.
Hmm. Well, keep up the good work. Everything
Thank
I've
you.
seen from you is just ridiculously encouraging and
I
humble
appreciate
and
that.
courageous. And I want the world needs more of that. So keep that up, man. Thank
I
you very
appreciate
much
that.
for being that light.
I
And
appreciate that.
I did want to ask. I haven't been to your YouTube channel. Can you describe a little bit of what that content looks like, and if somebody
Sure.
wanted to connect to it, what they would find?
Sure. So my YouTube channel is very small, and it's basically me just sort of experimenting with what I want my content to be. Because again, I never intended anyone to want to listen to me or follow me. So I posted my first YouTube video, I think this year in January, and I've just been, so I do a weigh-in Wednesday video every Wednesday where I talk about what I did well and didn't do well in the last week, but I want to do well in
Mm,
the future. I've been
Perfect.
posting short videos. I make a short video usually every morning in the Plet parking lot before I go in, less than 60 seconds, just to motivate me, to motivate others. So I throw that up on YouTube as well. I try to do 2 or 3 videos a week covering different topics. People will ask me, how has your diet changed? What advice would you have in the past? Sometimes people ask me questions, career advice. Again, crazy to me that people are asking me things, but I try to keep
Mhm.
it mostly focused on my weigh-ins and motivation. And then I throw in some other things about diet, about exercise. Usually videos are 5 to 10 minutes, just me talking to the camera. Again, just started in January. So it's one of those things where I'm just sort of building it, and then we'll see what it turns into.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Dave, I want to say thank you so very much for spending time with us today and for giving us the
Absolutely.
opportunity to dig into your story
Thank
and for
you.
sharing words of encouragement because that we need more of it in the world. So it's good to have you here
Thank you.
doing
It's my
that. And
pleasure
then
being here.
and to the listeners, thank you guys very much for joining us as well. I've put the link to Dave's Plet shirts and also
Thank you.
all the links that he just described via social media. I have those in the show notes for you below if you want to connect with him there. And hopefully, as you can continue on this journey, maybe we can hop back on sometime and talk
Absolutely.
about how things are going because
Absolutely.
your energy is welcome. So,
I appreciate that.
um,
Be my pleasure. And thank you for having me.
guys, this has been Alex Van Houten and Dave Danna in Better Daily. Thank you so much for joining us as we look at the big things that we can change that are small enough to make a difference. Until next time, it's just 1%. You got this.